You're watching Thrifty Kaniffy. Hello everyone and welcome to Thrifty Kaniffy. Today I have for you a cleaning and lubricating video. I'm just going to demonstrate how I clean new knives straight from the factory. This isn't really meant for any sort of a restoration or old knives, but if you have a knife in good shape, this will apply to that as well. But what the idea behind this video is to try to get rid of the original gunk that's in the knife from the factory. Essentially, they coat knives not so much for the action of the blade, but so that when you receive the knife through all the distribution channel, it's not going to be rusted. So the oil that's in there isn't really designed for great action. It's not a high quality oil. California even seems to think that it causes cancer, so getting rid of it is not going to be a bad thing. So let's go through the tools that I use here. Now, you use whatever you want. I'm not going to try to tell anyone to use any particular thing. I'm not saying I'm an expert, and I'm not saying that these tools are the only ones that will work. You use what works for you. Alright, so Q-tips generally work, but on this particular knife, because it's so narrow, this is kind of out. I'm not going to be able to really use those. They're just too thick. So what I like to use are these little double-sided cosmetic applicators. Now these little white things come off rather easily, kind of cheap, cheesy, but you know, just try to make the best of it. You can find these anywhere, you know, there's makeup counters or whatever, and sometimes they only come with one side, sometimes they come with two. I try to get the two-sided ones just to get more bang for your buck. Alright, the second thing you want is this white paper towel. I guess you don't have to have this necessarily, but for the demonstration it's going to be helpful to see the dirt coming out on a white background. Alright, and probably the most important thing here is the degreaser. Now, I use Simple Green. I don't know what the UK has, or internationally, I don't know what you're going to find. But this is a concentrated formula that's non-toxic and biodegradable, safe on the environment, safe on your hands, non-toxic. So you can dilute this, but I don't want to. I want to use it at full strength, and I'm going to show you how I use that. But the degreaser, if you don't have that, you could use soap and water. You could use maybe even like I have this contact cleaner that I can use, but I find the degreaser to be the quickest method as far as cleaning it, because you don't have to repeat the step over and over again. With soap, water, any of these other stuffs that I've tried, you're going to have to do it 3 and 4 times to get all the gunk out. With this degreaser, you usually can get it done in like two passes. Alright, so let's just jump right into it. I'm not going to mess around today. We'll get this, and I just squirt it right into the channel. Now this is a lock back. Not that that really matters, but you want to open the blade so that the spring is the most extended. We want a gap inside the channel for the fluid to leak out the bottom. That's the idea. And we're just going to let that kind of drain out a little bit after filling up the channel. Another thing you're going to want is some kind of a rag. Any kind of rag will work. It's not going to do anything but protect your hand from the blade. Now, once we have this filled, I'm just going to fill it again after it's dripped a little bit. We're just trying to drain it like an oil pan. Oh, in a car, right? Just get all the crap out of the bottom of the blade. Now, with that wrapped, we're going to bring the handle to the blade and keep the blade stationary. We'll just keep pivoting it like this. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. We're just trying to remove all the junk from the pivot point. Alright? And we'll just continue to put more fluid in there and let it drain. Now this knife doesn't really look to be too dirty. Not really getting a whole lot of junk on there, but I did feel grit on this prior to the video, so I know it was not the cleanest knife in the world. Now I chose to use a single blade knife because I didn't want to repeat this process 2 and 3 times. It's the same thing. You just continue to apply the degreaser into the channel and work the blade, and see it keeps locking on me because I'm going too far back. But you want to get that full action too, so make sure you get it all the way down, not just, yeah, see that helped a lot going up to the top there. That smoothed it out quite a bit. That's where all the junk's hiding now. So now we're going to do this one more time. Just let it drain. Again, about a third of the position out, that is where the spring is most extended. What I mean is like a third of the way closed, not halfway or further than that. It's about a third. It's generally where the spring is most exposed. And then I'll just start cleaning that spring off, knowing that there's been dirt flying past that. And then I'll come back in with that cosmetic brush, or sorry, applicator, and just clean the channel out. Just kind of wipe away from the joint when you're picking up stuff. There, you see. I mean, these weren't all 100% clean to begin with, these little things, but they're kind of expensive, so I like to try to reuse them when I can. But I'm just going to clean that channel out. Alright, and then we'll close the blade and clean the channel back here, or clean the, the joint, and just try to get all that junk out of there. Now I'm trying not to get anything on the handles. I don't think this is going to react, this degreaser, with bone or any kind of acrylic. You're probably safe, but use your best judgment there. If you've got something exotic, you may need to take it pretty easy on what you use. You don't want anything too harsh. But for these basic cheap knives that I'm generally cleaning, this simple green degreaser is safe for that. Alright, so just continue to clean the channel and maybe give it one more shot and let it drip out to the bottom now. I'm just trying to clean the liners and the springs and everything inside there, and you can see how these just tear up. They don't last. But about the only thing you can get in these channels when they're narrow like this. Alright, so let's get that cleaned up, wipe this dry. I don't want this wet for any length of time. And then we'll start our lubrication. One thing I've noticed too is the surface tension of the bottom of the spring. If you just kind of drag your finger along that slowly, you will draw out the moisture from the spring there. Just kind of wipe it slowly like this several times, and that will actually bring out some moisture if you do that. And then just dry it off any way you can. Let's get a dry applicator. And we're just going to dry all the moisture out of there. We don't want anything wet in there. The joint, get it closed, and we'll dry it there. You can even use a hair dryer if you have one. That works really well. It gets pretty hot pretty quick, so I wouldn't be holding it in your hand while you're doing it. But yeah, that'll get the moisture out pretty quick. Heats up those springs. Okay, so now you're going to have a pretty rough feeling knife because you've removed all the lubrication. It's going to feel kind of rough and gritty and make some noise while you're open and close it, and that's probably a good sign that you've got it clean. Okay, so let's start with lubrication. What I like to do is I have a little needle bottle that I use, and this has, you can use whatever you want. I'm just showing you what I use. Don't try to come back at me and say, that's not the right thing. You use what you like. But this is just a real light oil made for sewing machines. Singer. It's just a real light oil, real smooth, real lightweight. And I use this on springs. So just all it takes is a little dab in there. And then I'll put a little bit on a dirty applicator. So I'll use a dirty one because I don't want to use a clean one, and I'm just going to end up throwing it away. Now I'll oil the channel just real light. I don't want to pull off what I put in there. I'm just trying to spread it around, right? And that'll give you a nice coated liner and spring there. Just like that. That's all that takes. Real simple to do that. Okay, that's all I use the light oil for. Now this is going to depend again on what you like to use. So I'm not telling you what to use. I'm showing you what I use. Here it is. Okay. This is what I use for the joint lubrication. It's a synthetic grease, it's super lube. Okay. And for an applicator, I like to use a toothpick. Just ordinary toothpick. We'll get a little bit of lubrication on there. We don't need a lot. I mean, that's probably more than I need right there, if you guys can see that. But here is one of the most important parts of the video, and the one that I pretty much created it. The reason why I did, because I'm not seeing people do this. On a traditional knife, you make contact with the tang all the way through the liner. On a modern knife, which is what most of the videos that you see lubrication for, you can see a gap between the tang and the liners. So the method to lubricate is 100% different. It's just a different, you're just talking about two different things. You got bushings in here, you know, and it's one solid piece through the middle to pivot on. You don't have that with the traditional knife. You have rubbing along the tang. So you have to lubricate the tang and the interior where the liner is. So take your blade and expose the tang. Position your blade where the tang is most exposed. And then put that lubrication on both sides of the liner where the tang is going to rub, and on the tang itself. You can put some here if you want to, just to kind of help it out. And then we're going to close the knife, and we're going to put the rest of the lube again on the inside edges of the liner and bolster, and on the tang and spring right there at the crevice where it locks. Alright, now let's open it again. Get out your trusty cloth, protect the blade, and we're going to work it in there again, just like this. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, one thing you'll notice is when you put this grease on there, like I've done. Now, you can use whatever lube you want, but the grease works really well for picking up the crap that you missed with just the degreaser. And then you can just wipe that away, right? And kind of clean it a second time. If you want to, it's kind of optional. Just depends on how bad or dirty you think it is. And then you can come back in and just reapply some clean stuff. Alright, come back in and re-lube it again. And maybe you need to pick up a little more out of the tube. I'm not going to do that, but let's just pretend I did. Alright, and just put it in there. And lube it again all around the places where you did it the first time. And protect your blade. And you might just do that a couple times till you get all the grit out. I can kind of hear the grit or feel it. It's just a sense of what it is that you're doing. And you'll understand the more you do it. But that's really all there is to it. And now that blade is going to be super smooth and be as good as the blade can be. Now, it's not going to make miracle work out of everything, but you're going to be happier with it than you were when you started. Yeah, and that's really about all there is to it. And again, I just showed you a single blade to make the demonstration easier. Like I said, use whatever oil you want. I don't want to try to tell you what to use for lubrication, because that's really a product of the environment that you're using the knife in. I feel like the grease lasts longer, but also picks up more dirt. So if you're working in a dirty environment, grease may not be the best choice. If you're using the knife heavily in like areas where there's going to be a lot of moisture and water, grease makes more sense. One last thing, a little trick that I do is oftentimes you're going to have a little bit of that grease left over when you're moving the blade back and forth. You can use that to coat your blade. Just kind of a quick way to coat your blade. Just turn it that way and turn it that way, and now you got a quick application of on the blade to prevent corrosion that way. So nice little easy quick way to coat your knife when that wasn't even maybe your main intention. But there you go. That's how I do it. And if you want to get into like waxing, polishing video, I'll have to do that a different time. I'm not going to try to incorporate both of those into one video. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Not a lot to it. And anyone can do it. Again, use the materials that you have. I don't want you to have to go out and buy stuff that you don't want to buy. But these are pretty handy for the narrow channels. I don't know what else you might use for that. So that might be the one thing you do need to get. Alright guys, take care. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Ring that bell so you know when new videos drop. And you guys have a nice day.